Yay! I've always been creative. When I was little, I first wanted to be a fashion designer, and then I'm not really a fashionable person. So along the way, I kind of found my path into advertising. Went to design school. That was really awesome. Did some papers in advertising and copywriting, and then worked my way through a very expensive university degree, and then out into Adland. And I've just been doing that ever since. It's awesome. It's really awesome. So I have never freelanced before until I came back to New Zealand. I was away for a really long time in London, Australia, and then trying to come back to New Zealand. I was really ambitious and wanted to find a full-time job, but I had no contacts anymore. So I've just been freelancing while looking for perm, or as I call it, just working while looking for work. And that's kind of the path, and that's the path I'm still on at the moment. So many for both. Where do I begin? Um, Pros, if you have the right personality for it, it's really flexible. If you're picky, you can choose your projects. You get to try. One thing I do actually really like is that when I came back from being overseas, I had no idea which agencies were big, small, hot, cold, whatever everyone was doing. So what I have really, actually, really loved about it is going around the houses and trying like, oh, this is a big one, and this is kind of their vibe and their culture, and then trying a small one, and then just kind of finding where my place might be back in the advertising industry in Auckland. So that's really good. The cons, if you're a person like me, I find it so stressful not having consistent income or work, and I don't like relaxing. So I find it really, really hard when there's no work. So depending on your personality, you might like the spare time, but for me, I find that a huge con. Yeah, and the money is quite good for freelancing if you're good at doing your tax. Always do your tax. Always. No, and I don't ever want to have a preference because it's so nice being able to do both. And probably in 2020, if you're doing one or the other, you might just get forced down one direction or get a little bit stale. So I've never really worked on anything that's been purely print or purely digital. It's always been everything, and that's really nice. And yeah, I think it's cool doing both. I like my hands. They're useful for all of the things, for all of the design programs, all of the drawing, all of the aggressive art directing and pointing. But on a technical side, I love InDesign. I just love it. It's reliable and consistent and can make really nice grids. Not really, because I've worked on some pretty hairy briefs or briefs that people might think are boring, that people would roll their eyes at, and then you're like, actually, it's awesome. So I don't know. I mean, in my dreamland, I love working for like non-profits or maybe Sea Shepherd or something eco and environmental because that's more of like my personality. Vibe, I really want to save the world. But if I can't do that, any brief or really, really tough briefs, always good. I like the briefs that no one likes. Because when you do something good, you're like, fuck yes, nailed it. So, no, not really. Unless we're going to save the planet. Then I'm into it. It is. I always have a few personal projects which are just for fun, and then usually that fun is like what technical skill am I lacking, and then instead of forcing myself to do some horrible tutorial online, I'll trick myself into making it a fun project. So like one of the ones I'm working on, probably like most art directors, are closet copywriters. So a lot of my personal projects are about writing and story development and narrative because that's something I don't get to do a lot of in my work life. No, no. In case you didn't get it, I find it. I like to be busy 24/7. So if I have an option to choose, then of course I'll be picky. But no, never picky. I had a disastrous moment, which ended up in a good moment. My disaster moment was moving to Brisbane. That was a terrible choice. And that went wrong in every single way possible. But the really good thing is that it made me come back to New Zealand, which has been really awesome. So, shit show. Couldn't be better being back home. Oh, coming back to New Zealand after the disaster of Brisbane. That was awesome. And then on probably a more work note, I was working with an agency with BCNF, and they were awesome and they made me feel like family, and I had the most wonderful time. And then they let me work on some really, really awesome projects, which as a freelancer, I just couldn't believe my luck. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say what they were, but they were really awesome. And everyone there was awesome. So that's like just the happiest little end to 2019 for me. It was great. That is a good question. Firstly, take a good look at yourself and realize if you have the right personality for it, I would say, on a serious note, because you need to have a degree of chill. And that's not, for example, that's not me. I don't have the right personality for permalancing, freelancing. But if you're chilled and relaxed and believe that all like the goodness and money will flow to you, you'll be sweet. Just be 1000% sure that you can do it in here, which is a bit lofty, but I think that's quite important for surviving in the freelance world. Well, as you probably guess, my plan from here is to keep working while looking for work or freelancing until I find that good little permanent home. And then I'm going to get that permanent home, and then really, I'd like to win loads of awards. But we'll get the permanent job first. That's the plan.